So the sketchbooks are a way of recording things that I see in a more committed way, in a way that one is able to do with a photograph, but they're also a way of testing out ideas. My name's Peter Barber, I'm an architect, and this is one of my sketchbooks. This is an idea about, perhaps you can see it, a very tall house, one room per floor, and very often things that start in a sketchbook, something I observed, find their way ultimately into projects. I will sometimes escape from the sketchbook, continue to sketch, but do something a little bit more like this at another scale. And you know, the Xerox machine has its part in this. I'm able to sort of repeat pieces. That's where it starts, and this is where it kind of, I hope it's not where it finishes up, I hope it gets built, but you can see the sort of germination of an idea from there to there. We went to southern China and we've discovered this extraordinary gritty sort of village of courtyard houses. You can see the courtyards in there with little alleyways running down the side, everyone identical. And I just thought this was a very interesting type. And when you're on the street outside, blank walls, because the courtyards themselves are sort of concealed behind these walls. That's the thing kind of multiplied, which way up to go, that way up. So this is sort of farmland and farmland, and in the middle between the two is this sort of grid of alleyways, or a lattice or a ladder of alleyways with little tiny courtyard houses. And I think that's sort of quite a compelling kind of image and idea. It's not something we've built yet, but perhaps we will one day. And this is what happens. Sometimes I start from that end and sometimes I start from that end, so hence the confusion, but it's also part of the fun. And again, one gets out onto bigger sheets of paper and they become less workmanlike and perhaps a little bit more useful as a presentation tool to a client. Something I can produce in a couple of hours, where the same drawing would take, you know, probably a couple of days in a computer and might not be quite as evocative. So these are sort of perspectives at eye level, but elsewhere we've got other sorts of drawings which are, this is looking down on a new piece of town that we've designed up in Barnet. You're seeing the roofs of houses here, and actually here we have a perspective of a space like that, but getting down to the human view of what it is like to be at eye level, what it's like to be in that square and to look up at the balconies and see the sky and the silhouette of the buildings against the sky. You've got the guy walking the dog, you've got views into shops, you've got people sitting around in trees, and you know, very different from this view, the buildings are silhouetted against the sky. Very often you do these projects, you put all this work in and they don't go ahead. I think probably 1 in 20 goes ahead, so there's an awful lot of drawings like this of places which will never exist. But the process is a kind of a cumulative, so you draw that, and even if it doesn't get built, it reappears somewhere else in another project later. So time is never wasted, and the process of doing these drawings is part of learning about architecture. Sketching is a habit that I learned in my early 20s when I went to work in an architect's office, and worked out there were two kinds of architects, those that could sketch and those that couldn't, and those that couldn't were at a severe disadvantage. Those that could, it was wonderful to watch them working, to see them explaining their work quickly, easy, with a real facility, and it's communication, and I realised that I was going to have to get good at it, so I kept a sketchbook from that day to this.